You want to disappear, Lamb Chop? You've got it.
Millie had never been as terrified as when she heard those words echoing down on her. She began to panic then and frantically banged on the hatch that made up the bear's belly, hoping she would either break out or alert her grandfather. Neither happened, and Funtime Freddy giggled at her meager attempts, though otherwise he stayed quiet. After a couple of hours passed, Millie became convinced that Funtime Freddy was intending to hold her until she died of dehydration. That would be a particularly gruesome death, but she had held on to the hope that her grandfather would come into the room and find her before then. It was a thin sliver of hope. That was until sometime later in the night when Funtime Freddy started to move. Millie had fallen asleep and awoke to the body shaking and shifting as he stood up. It easily carried her weight, and she was beginning to panic. "What's going on? Where are you taking me?" she asked frantically. "You'll see," he trilled. He punctuated it with a short giggle. She knew there was no point in pleading with him. She had for hours on end, but this newfound sense of secrecy only made her more aware of her lingering doom. Now nobody was going to find her. He was right. He was going to make her disappear. Unable to see anything or make much of directions, Millie sat inside of Funtime Freddy for ages as it left the house and went somewhere. Again, Freddy was strangely quiet, and whenever she did press for answers, he was remarkably tight-lipped, save things like, "You'll see soon enough," and, "Oh, we're going to have so much fun." The long period of travel was broken by a loud creaking noise that sounded like a metal door. Millie tried to listen in against the hatch and could hear the lumbering footsteps on what sounded like concrete and what very faintly sounded like voices in the distance. They quieted down, but she attempted to listen closer. Then, all of a sudden, Funtime Freddy's hatch opened and Millie was dumped onto the floor, onto a thin tarp that did little to deflect from the concrete beneath it.
"Welcome to the Funtime Freak Show, kiddo."
Millie looked up quickly and found her blood run cold. She was in some sort of abandoned warehouse or something like it. Old props, probably from pizzerias closed decades ago, were set up like some sort of makeshift diner. Posters were clumsily taped over the walls, and strands of lights weaved in shelves and hung between them and along the walls as well. But what horrified her was not the decor, but the creatures standing around her. They were like Funtime Freddy, broken and busted animatronics barely keeping themselves together. There was a ballerina hunched down on all fours like a spider. Her eyelids were open, but there were no eyes inside. Her paint was worn away, and some of the plates on her chest were missing. 4 small ballerinas clung to her body, some of them missing limbs or stained with dirt and paint. Then there was a fox who looked like it might have been stylized like Funtime Freddy. It was missing one eye, and its chest plate was missing, revealing wires spilling out of its belly. Its mouth was also hanging open, so its jaw was probably useless. There was a small animatronic that looked like a blue rabbit. What was odd was that its legs didn't seem to match against its body right, and were white and beige instead of a matching blue, almost like they didn't originally belong to it. The final one looked to be a clown from the face peeking out from behind the shelf, though she couldn't make much of it other than a few wires poking out from under its face. All of their eyes were staring down at her, and Millie was becoming increasingly nervous. Her heart started pounding, her vision began to tunnel, and her palms were sweating worse now than when she was first trapped inside Freddy. She was beginning to hyperventilate. "Oh, what's wrong, silly Millie? Just so in shock and awe about our fantastical little scrap circus," Funtime Freddy chirped mockingly. When she looked back at him, dwarfed by his massive form, he chuckled. "Oh, you should see the look on your face." "You're going to kill me?" Millie blurted out. Her voice was high and her question mixed up. He cocked his head at her, eyes lowering to show the metal above them, almost like giving a half-lidded look. "I'm sure you'd love that, wouldn't you?" His voice was deeper, still mocking but now borderline threatening. It sent a chill down her spine. "But nope. See, I had a brilliant idea on how you could disappear, just like you wanted, and still be a productive member of society." He spread his arms. "You're gonna join our circus." That was not what she was expecting. "What?" "See, we're not all put together here. Foxy can't close his mouth to save his life, But Laura's blind as a bat. Anyone who sees us is going to think we ain't good enough to be on stage.
But you,
he poked her on the forehead, you're just as busted up as we are. You're into twisted and dark stuff. You're a real sicko. You'd be a perfect audience. So you kidnapped me, brought me here, and you want me to watch your show? Millie asked. That's the plan, Funtime Freddy chirped. There were happy-sounding giggles from the ballerina's direction, but it sounded more like it was the dolls on it. The fox clapped his hands, clattering the metal together. For a moment she thought that maybe this was more innocent than she had feared. Maybe she could still get out of this. So, if I stay and watch the show, you'll let me go? Millie tentatively asked. This time she was met with a pause. Then a low chuckle from Funtime Freddy. Ha ha, you're a real killer, Lamb Chop. If I let you go, you wouldn't be disappearing, would ya? Nah, you're gonna stay right here with us. And you're gonna watch all our shows. And we're going to have so much fun. Millie felt that fear return. She looked around at the warehouse and could tell it had been abandoned for a long time. There were no signs of windows, and she couldn't see where the door was. She was trapped here, and even if she did try to escape, they would stop her. Or worse. The thought of being trapped back in the bear made her feel ill. By now she was trembling, tears of panic and frustration welling up in her eyes. "Aw, don't cry, honey bear. It's gonna be great. We'll get you food and water, we'll keep you safe and warm, we're gonna take good care of you," Funtime Freddy assured. "Because you're gonna be staying with us for a long, long time."